Joker Machine. High-quality products for Honda CB750s, vintage customs, along with complete late-model Triumph and HD Sportster performance parts. All parts are manufactured to Joker Machine legendary quality standards in the USA for motorcyclists by motorcyclists. Accept nothing less. Check us out at jokermachine.com. Arai Helmets. It's not the destination, it's the journey. Ultimate comfort and protection for the journey. Arai Helmets. Racetech has superior suspension products for custom cafe racers plus street and vintage race bikes. Our G3S Custom Series shocks are built and set up for each rider, featuring high-performance springs, gold valves and a wide range of adjustment, and they're made in the USA. Full shop services are available from installation, anodizing, special friction-reducing coatings and custom colouring of your suspension. Experience the difference of Racetech. Visit racetech.com or call 951 279 6655.
Metro Racing, the leader in vintage motorcycle clothing and accessories, has what you need to show pride in what you ride. With over 90 logos, the choices are almost endless. Remember the names: Bultaco, Norton, Matchless, and BSA. Metro has faithfully reproduced all the great logos from the past and put them on quality products for you. Metro Racing, purveyors of motorcycle history since 1987.
With their Spartan appearance and aggressive styling, the Cafe Racer is amongst the world's most distinctive and revered motorcycles. Conceived and ridden on the streets of England during the 1950s and 60s, the Cafe Racer's influence continues today in custom street and racing motorcycles. Until now, the Cafe Racer's incredible history and dangerous origins have remained the stuff of legend. Now the people who made these machines famous can tell their own story. Welcome to Cafe Society. Cafe racers may be a worldwide phenomenon, but to trace their origins we visited one of the birthplaces of cafe racer culture, London's Ace Cafe. The Ace is just one of dozens of roadside transport cafes that provided a gathering place for speed-obsessed motorcyclists in mid-century England. In 1994, former policeman and avid biker Mark Willsmore held a reunion for riders who frequented the Ace during its heyday. When thousands of riders turned up for the event, it prompted Willsmore to reopen the cafe and restore it to its former glory.
Well, I'm not old enough to have been here first time round, but the cafe opened originally in 1938 as the road out to the south of our car park here, the North Circular, had opened not long before that, an arterial or a main trunk route around the northern side of London. And this was a typical transport cafe of its day. During the following couple of years, war broke out and this whole area was flattened in an air raid. And the building we're now in was built in 1948 as a cafe and restaurant. Subsequently closed in 1969. And I came along in '94, organised a reunion 25 years after it had closed, and eventually in 2001 the place fully reopened as you see now. But its history includes a period, particularly after the Second World War, 1940s into the 50s and 60s, where the British motorcycle industry was at its fullest strength, huge numbers of bikes being produced, and the baby boom generation took to those bikes as being the cheapest means of transport that they could acquire. And having bought motorbikes, they then would gather, as youngsters do to this day, to talk their interests and passions, and having a vehicle, putting guys together, they'd race their bikes on the stretch of road out here, at which time there were no speed limits, no laws about what tests they'd have to take. And of course, kids racing vehicles without any sort of management at all can only produce carnage. And the carnage that was produced a national outcry in the newspapers and in TV and on the radio, to the extent that in essence a whole culture came to be termed ton-up boy, leather boy, and eventually rockers.
The hunger to make their ordinary street bikes go faster and resemble the machines ridden by British racing heroes like Mike Hailwood and Jeff Duke was all part of the cafe racer ethos.
Transport cafes, I guess, would be the equivalent of what you would call diners in the States, where the busy arterial trunk roads, as we call them, maybe in the States your freeways and your interstates, you would have pull-offs where you get your gas, we call petrol over here, but where you get your gas and you get your food. And invariably, these are at the edges of town. They're on straight, fast stretches of road, and quite appealing for people with vehicles to meet at. And the other great attraction of cafes, and I suspect diners in the States at that time, was the jukebox. And certainly in this country, when rock and roll first came around in the mid-50s, you could only hear rock and roll on a jukebox. There was no radio stations playing it, no clubs playing it. So this new music of youngsters, mixed with having their own vehicles and their own identity, along comes this identity, the ton-up boy and his bike, the cafe racer, because invariably the racing would be from one cafe to another. The party piece, so I'm told, was to come past here flat out, which is around about 100 mile an hour on a 650 twin, and someone pulls out and you're doing 100 mile an hour coming along here, you're dead. And lots of people came to grief at that junction. The other party piece was to go from here either east towards what's called the Iron Bridge, the S-bends. There's a big heavy metal iron bridge on a S-bend. When you exited that S-bend, there was a roundabout. That's now superseded by straightforward carriageway, different junction layout entirely now, made a lot safer. But it's either to race from here east, crossing 1, 2, 3, 4 junctions to the roundabout and back, or to the roundabout to the west of here called Hanger Lane, where there are were two junctions to cross. And invariably, if you were racing, it didn't matter if those lights were red. You just went through them, or not, as the case may be. Quite mad. But again, in the context of the period, the 50s and the 60s, it's the time of the atom bomb and the commies conquering space, and we could all be dead in 2 minutes at the press of a button. So the psychology, I suggest, of youngsters and that particular backdrop is, well, we might as well enjoy today because we might not be here tomorrow. And that was played out in full colour out here.
Well, why do you treat me so mean? You're the meanest thing I've ever seen. You're letting me hold you tight. You're letting me love you right. How about you know I love you, so why do you what you wanna do.
With credit easily available, few police patrol vehicles capable of matching the speed of a well-tuned motorcycle, and little in the way of national speed limits, motorcycle sales skyrocketed in late 50s England. By then, countless teens yearned to don the black leather jackets and Royal Air Force-inspired gear of the Ton-Up Boys, who were making headlines across the country. Having grown up in nearby Kensal Rise, North London, right near the centre of the action, Dave Johnson was one of them.
I would say somewhere like 60, 61, 62 onwards. Where I lived at Neasden, which is a few miles straight down that way. Went to school with all the other lads, all the other people in the area, kids in the area. And one day I heard them talking about a cafe they go to the evening. I asked them about it, and I came down with the elder boys from school. And we got a bus from Neasden, where I lived. We got off the bus up the top here, and we was walking down, you know, and I was sort of really amazed. The place in itself was lit up completely. It was like its own little atmosphere it had down here. Cars in and out, lorries in and out, people, and it was a brilliant place. I had a little 125 Bantam, small little two-stroke, plunger frame. To me, it was brilliant when you haven't got much money. And when you get on that, you've got the freedom of the road to go anywhere. You know, it was brilliant. You know, not have to keep waiting for buses and walking everywhere, or push biking. I went up in the world. I thought I did anyway. I got it was a 500cc. It was a Tiger 100 cum 5TA. Unit construction Triumph. It was one that was made up. It was made up by a few friends of mine I used to knock about with then. Where are they now? I don't know, but it was a marvellous bike because it used to just get me anywhere, everywhere. I used to really enjoy it, you know. But I had that all through the 60s and everything. I didn't really want anything faster. That was fast enough for me. It was reliability you wanted as well, you know, back in them days. I've had mates down here with trying out bikes, combinations. We had the sidecar there with just a board of wood on it, you know, screwed down, everything. I'd been round on that, and it's hairy, that was, and I wouldn't want to do that again. We're sort of invincible in them days, you know. You fell off and you scraped along the floor, you got back up, you was cut, bruised. I've had lost some of my teeth and bent my nose and scraped them, but you just accepted it in them days. You accepted it.
Though thousands of men and women tested their homemade machines and their metal on the roads of Great Britain during the Ton-Up era, some riders became legends for not only their love of speed, but their love of mischief as well. For several years during the late 1950s, Barry Noddy Cheese was king on the North Circular Road.
I think that's when I got nicked outside, when the police used to use these little Velocets, and they used to call them Noddy men. And rather than, the idea of Noddy men came from, they used to actually salute their sergeants, but they wasn't allowed to take their hands off the handlebars, so they used to nod, so that's where they got their name from. And I got nicked outside in front of all the lads. I was on my Bonneville, and I forgot to turn the petrol on. And there I was getting a ticking off outside of the Ace Cafe. Well, I started coming down the Ace Cafe about 56, 57, and I've been asked a lot of times what was the Ace Cafe really like, and I can tell you and sum that up. If you look at an old Wild West film of Wild cleaning up Dodge City, that's exactly how the Ace Cafe was. Great days, you know, and we used to make the rules up as we used to go along. Because don't forget, when you look at this road now, it's completely different with the underpass, but we had the old bridges and the sound from the exhaust, the notes of the exhaust, it was great. And we'd come past here and all the lads would be here with the old bill behind us, the old police behind us, chasing us. We lost lots of lads down here. I'm afraid it was a regular thing going to the funerals, and it was a sad time for us all, you know. I mean, I've got lots of my friends have gone now, and I don't make new friends easy now because it's, you know, when you lose friends, you find it difficult to make new friends because it's too painful when you lose them. Always did our own maintenance. But if you didn't know what you were doing, there was plenty of lads down here, and we all used to muck in. If somebody passed here with anything, we'd have it in here. Didn't have to call the AA or the RAC. we'd do it for them. And there was never no charge for it. Cup of tea, you might get a cup of tea or a fag out of you.
What would you do to make your motorcycles faster back in the cafe racer
All
days?
sorts of things. Change the jets in the carbs, take the exhaust off. We was a bit naive then until we realised, you know, but we learnt as we went along. And just changed the bike around, customised it to our own effect, made it a cafe racer, you know. But we had some fun down here, especially with the police. We was all regular customers up to the magistrates court, and then eventually we got fed up with that. So what we decided to do in those days, we used to take our number plates off, and then we used to put a black background on, and then you could put your own numbers on. So we used to go down the shop, put the black background on, and then just before the guy asked you what the number was, you used to go outside the shop, and whoever happened to be passing, and some old bloke on that, we'd take his number and put his, you know. And of course, them days, we could, after that, we never used to bother to stop, you know. I mean, there used to be an old saying on here, like people say, what was you doing? I said, look, don't worry about that. There's only 2 positions on our throttle, off and on, mate. We don't worry about things like that. But there was one instance where we had a big transporter coming down the North Circular Road with a 6 police escort, and they parked outside here, because right opposite the Ace used to be a big lay-by. And they pulled in, the driver wanted a cup of tea, and they all came over here. So one of my mates said to me, I wonder what those Thunderbirds are like, you know, and I said, well, probably a bit heavy with all that radio equipment on. So I went over there, put the old spade key in, started the bike up, and I thought all the lads were cheering. So I thought I'd give them a real treat, turned the blue lights on, and there we were, up and down and on their bikes, like. Great fun.
As the ranks of the cafe racers grew, so did the cult of speed surrounding them. With Britain's notorious tabloid newspapers in need of a new villain, the rockers and ton-up boys made a convenient target for exaggerated stories of death and destruction. The reputation of the rockers took its most severe beating when they began clashing with groups of scooter-riding kids, known as mods, at seaside resorts during the early 1960s. Though accounts vary as to how bad the violence was, the period helped to solidify the rockers' rough, tough image.
We used to mix with the mods and us, but we all got on really well together, even sort of helped them out, keep their scooters going. You know, we sort of taught them sometimes how to fix them and, you know, why they wouldn't start. They used to come up and we always used to take the piss out of each other, you know, like have a go at each other. But that was life back in them days. Mods are, they had a different form of transport, scooters, but they followed the fashion of the day, of the early 60s. The clothes, the hair, their groups were different. Music was changing. Where I liked the old rock and roll, being a greaser or a rocker. I loved the rock and roll and all that. To them, that was old fashioned. Yeah, I can well understand that. I can understand it, you know. And the difference between them is they were clean, we were dirty.
It was the sort of thing my father wouldn't want me associated with. I was always, there's no way you're having a motorbike ever, you know. And in fact, I learnt to ride my first motorcycle off-road, and he thought I'd get that completely out of my system. And actually, what it made me do was just want the biggest, baddest thing you could get, which was a Vincent. It was a bad days in that respect. You know, you wouldn't be allowed into pubs. You'd get thrown out of hotels. You know, people didn't want to know you. There'd be signs outside pubs, no leathers in here, and this sort of thing. I've been in pubs many times in the past where you get there now, I've got my leather jacket on and my helmet's left out on the bike, and they won't serve you. You've got leathers on. It's that association with leathers, motorbikes, trouble, which I'm very pleased is now gone. I mean, I can remember days when I would arrive in a town with a few mates on the bikes as a rocker, and you'd see the mods there, and you'd stay out of the way. You'd get trouble. There definitely was a war going on. This is what you might call tribal warfare, I suppose, today. You know, if you want to analyse it, that's all it is really. Two different groups of people who like different things, and You know, kids are growing up.
Were there a lot of them?
Yes, all crowd. We couldn't move. It was jammed. About 200, I should think,
And
all
they
together in the buffet.
and they turned a table right over, hadn't they?
That was the first table. That's what I went round to see. And I thought, well, I'd lock the side door. We have a side door. And I went to lock the door and they pushed me over.
Right
One
over on the
of them,
ground.
one of the boys, very good-looking boy too, I wouldn't have thought it. And then they pulled me right across the buffet from the corner to the middle of the buffet. And then he ran out and put his arm through the plate glass door window.
And they just left you lying on the floor, didn't they?
No, one of the rockers picked me up, another rocker at another table. He was very sweet.
Well, tell me, baby, who's your lover mine?
In addition to the clashes with the mods, rockers became known for playing other dangerous games. There were numerous reports of something called record racing. Some say record racing was an exaggerated media story, while others claim it was commonplace at cafes from the Busy Bee all the way to Cafe Rising Sun.
What it consisted of is jukebox, and every cafe back then had a jukebox, the only place you could hear rock and roll. Tracks were all about 3 minutes long, if I'm not mistaken. Coin in, and then out onto your bike, up to Hanger Lane and back again before the record finished. And again, that's just the recipe for carnage, basically.
Despite the negative headlines and mounting pressure for helmet laws, national speed limits and a ban on motorcyclists younger than 16 riding these fast machines, there emerged a movement to rehabilitate the image of British rockers and ton-up boys. In 1962, a motorcycling preacher by the name of Father Bill Shergold offered bikers the chance to congregate in his London parish. That was the start of the motorcycle section of the 59 Club, a church youth mission that attracted thousands of riders who performed good deeds and charity work aimed at improving the public perception of bikers.
In my eyes, you wake up like a worm on a rubber. You got a whole lot of weight, but ain't no name of her. Now let's get it, go.
Driving around on a Saturday night, me and my baby just had a big fight. Pulled into a strange part of town, and then I cruised up to the only club around. I went inside, and man, was I surprised.
Britain's motorcycle manufacturers saw an eager customer base and began designing street bikes imbued with the cafe racer style and performance. Among them, Triumph's twin-cylinder Bonneville Thruxton, BSA's 350 and 500cc Gold Stars, Norton's Dom Eraser and Manx, Velocet's Thruxton, and Royal Enfield's Continental GT were amongst the most popular. Because most ton-up boys were dedicated to designing and tuning their own machines, few motorcycles have come to characterise the Cafe Racer as well as the Triton, a homemade hybrid of Norton's sharp-handling featherbed frame and a tuned Triumph engine. The strength and popularity of this unique design is evidenced by the fact that several bespoke manufacturers still offer complete custom Tritons for sale today. Among them is Dave Deegans of Dresda Autos, a man credited with popularising the Triton from his London-based garage for the past half-century.
Well, the shop it's a workshop that we do development work and assemble and make bikes. We cover most things. We can make frames, modify engines. We get a lot of classic customers that have a bike that they can't get the engines running properly and there isn't any manuals or anything, so they give us the engine and say, well, can you work it out? So we'll end up doing altering the cam design and putting lighter valves in lighter springs and actually blueprinting an old engine to make it run smoother because technologies move forward, that materials available now for valves and valve springs and things like that are far superior that was available at the time, and we put those inside so you get an old vintage or classic motor running lovely and smooth because it's got the modern bits inside. A Triton is it's a Triumph engine in a Norton chassis. The Triumph engine is a very reliable engine, and the spare parts were cheap, and it was the best engine. The Triumph Bonneville was one of the fastest road bikes you could buy in the late 50s. And the Norton, Manx Norton, was the best handling frame. So what we did is we got a Triumph engine, put it into a Norton Manx chassis, and of course it then becomes a Triton. So it's the two names put together. Well, we made Tritons initially. The first Triton that I saw, a friend of mine who was older than me, he had made it out of an original Manx Norton, and he just popped the Triumph engine in, still leaving the original Norton gearbox, and he used to have to bump start it because he didn't have a kickstarter. And I was running a Matchless and it broke down, and he ended up towing me, and he was towing me with this Triton at sort of 80, 90 miles an hour to get me back to Twickenham, which was probably 40, 50 miles away. And that stuck in my mind when I was a youngster. So then a few years later, when I had started racing bikes, I thought, well, it'd be nice to make a combination like then, because it was so impressive. And I made my first Triton a racer, and we went to Spain and won a 24-hour race, beating the Italian and Spanish factory teams. I had 4 or 5 people I employed, and we had people queuing up for them. We had we've always had 6 to 9 months delivery on bikes. Now, it was up to 2 years at one time. We were approached by Honda because we beat them in a couple of races, and our bike was much, much lighter, more manoeuvrable. And of course the fuel consumption was much better. We were averaging like between 42 and 50 to the gallon on a racing bike, where they were lucky to get 18 and 20. And of course they were having to have bigger petrol tanks and change the riders more often and fill up. And we beat them just because we were that much lighter and much more economic. So I was approached by Jap Auto, who was a main Honda importer in France, to make a bike for him to do the Bull d'Or 24-hour race. And we did 5 chassis kits for him, and he went that year and won with it. It was much, much lighter. The frame worked out at probably 1/3 the weight of the original Honda frame. There's a box section swinging arm, and the reason we did that is that we did some development for Yamaha, and they had a problem with the swinging arm wearing and racing, and we put taper bearings, so it's actually got the bearings that's similar to the taper bearings in a car wheel in it. A car wheel, so you filled it with grease, and it didn't wear. They had plastic bearings or some that were wearing fast, and so that was the modification we did for them. And then the following year, Dunlop brought out a wider tyre, and it wouldn't go into the round swinging arm that we put these taper bearings on. So we then made a square swinging arm, so it allowed them to use a wider tyre without having to modify the frame. I've raced all through the 60s, and in my races I had problems with aluminium tanks cracking. I actually had overtaken the World Championship Agostini at the time at Brands Hatch, and on the last lap and the last corner, the bottom of an alloy oil tank came out and I crashed. And I had another one. I had a 7R catch fire, that the petrol tank split and it dripped fuel down onto magneto. And then when fiberglass started to be developed, I tried fiberglass tanks and mudguards and find them far superior. Fiberglass won't split and just dump all your oil or petrol on the floor. It would just crack and give you a little weeping, which you can handle.
You were one of the first people who was a cafe racer on the street, but then took your skills to the track. Had many other people done the same thing?
Yes, you've got Dave Croxford. He was an ace boy. He used to go down the Ace Cafe. He was a successful racer in the 60s, and there's quite a few other people. I think the last race I did was 2002. Gosh, that makes me 67. sponsor a series of races in the Vintage Racing Club, and Lyddon Circuit is relatively close. It's at Dover, which was not that far away, and I was sponsoring Nigel Waring on a pair of Dresdners at the time, and I thought, well, it would be nice to do a race, and I hadn't raced that year much at all. So I phoned the organiser up and asked them if they'd got room for me in my race that I was sponsoring, and they said, well, bring your bike down, Dave, we'll fit you in somewhere. And the race, unfortunately, my 500 race with my bike is a 500, was oversubscribed, but they let me start at the back of the unlimited race, which means of engines of twice the capacity that I was racing. He said, we'll start at the back and you won't get in the way. Anyway, I started at the back, and I'm quite familiar with the circuit. I actually won the championship there, so I could go quite quickly. And in 3 laps, I'd taken the lead, and I won the race very easily.
Deegan's is typical of cafe racers who took their considerable street riding talents to Britain's road racer circuits during the era. On the tracks, former street riders like Eddie Dow, Dave Deegans and Paul Dunstall helped develop technologies like disc brake conversion kits, big bore engines and tuned exhausts that formed the backbone of the first performance parts aftermarket. Today, manufacturers are again offering cafe racers for the road, including Triumph's Bonneville Thruxton, Ducati's Sport 1000 and the Stonebridge Cafe Racer, powered by an American-made S&S V-twin engine from custom builder Nick Gale. Coincidentally, one of the biggest names from the world of road racing during this period has resurfaced as a cafe racer builder. David Halewood, son of Grand Prix and Isle of Man road racing legend Mike the Bike Halewood.
My father was a 9-time world champion motorcycle racer, 14 TT wins, 76 Grand Prix wins, numerous other wins of all sorts, and a Formula 2000 car racing champion as well. Unfortunately missed out on a Formula 1 World Championship by only 1 point. I really love the classic style. I love my new bikes as well, but I suppose it all harks back to my father's era. My father raced a lot of Nortons, 500 Manxes, a lot of Japanese machines as well, Hondas. Just about anything you can name, my dad raced. So my heart is really with the old school. Well, my father got started in the late 50s. I think one of the first things he actually ever did was the Scottish 6-day trials, which is a really tough event to do. And from there, through his father, my grandfather, who was the first guy to import Italian bikes to England, specifically Ducatis and Guzzi's, he had the opportunity to go racing. My grandfather supplied the machinery, but my grandfather, being the hard man that he was, it was the case of, right, if you want that, you have to earn it, and by earning it, that meant being first. Second place was a fancy word for a loser. Personally, I love the styling and I love the sound. There's nothing beats the sound of the classic bike. You may get, say, 10 bikes consecutively from the factory line, but each one has got its own distinct little different sound, you know, and they handle just that little bit differently, but you ride one from one to the next and you can feel the difference. Each one is a personality on its own. Well, we would really like to make a big run of our Vincent Egleys and our Norvins, which unfortunately I still haven't ridden yet, but I really can't wait to get out on. We will really want to push all these hard, as well as developing and continuing with our restoration business, which for us is a very big part of the business. Well, a brand new Egley, Vincent, which we're building at the moment, we're looking at a time of 8 to 10 months to build. Restoring a classic can take any time, depending on the parts, the rarity of the bike. Obviously, some parts you just can't find anymore and have to be made. So I say that it really does all depend on what's wrong with the bike and what kind of bike it is. Having been out of the scene for a long time, I've noticed a lot of old rock groups are all making a resurgence, and old style cars, you know, like the Mini has recently been brought back, and I think just a general fashion harking back to the old days. So I think that's probably where it comes from, and it's nice to see the bikes coming along with it. I mean, I love all bikes, but there's nothing like a great bit of style. I mean, it's very close to my dad's era. I suppose that's why I love it so much. I mean, I've ridden plenty of big new bikes, and it's great fun. I mean, I love them. There's nothing beats it, but as I said before, there's nothing like having a bike with personality. Nowadays, a lot of the bikes, yeah, they have their distinct looks, but if you took the name off the majority of the bikes and all lined them up and fired them all up, they pretty much all sound the same and pretty much all look the same. So, back in the old days, there were a lot more British makes than there are today. And I say every single one was distinct, from top to bottom, front to back. They were all totally unique and all great fun to ride. I mean, it really was the beginning of what we're all riding, brand new modern bikes today. Without these beautiful bikes, we wouldn't have the good opportunities to ride all the Ducatis, the Kawasaki's, the new Hondas, all of these machines. So it was literally the birth of modern bikes, I think.
Lucky for us, Harewood's chief technician, Stan Wheeler, has readied one of the Egley Vincent Cafe Racers for us to ride. This is going to be fun.
Fontana brakes. It's got Seriani GP forks, Ali yokes, Ali tank. The frame is T45 lightweight tube, nickel plated. Rear hub is magnesium. That's also Manani. Engine, 50-degree V-twin Vincent, all brand new, with Carrillo rods, megacycle cams, and Omega pistons. This one in particular is a twin spark head. It's got 2 spark plugs per head, which produces a lot more torque. It's a transistor, fully transistorized ignition. You can put a kickstart on, but we only use electric starts. Fritz Egley was a Swiss frame builder. There's an oil tank here. It's carried in this big diameter spine, which is the main frame spine. It's all brand new. All the parts are CNC machines. So, they're probably putting out around 65 horsepower as opposed to the original 45.
And it's got that big old giant Smith's clock thing there. What kind of top speed can it actually hit?
These will do probably 140.
Although many cafe racers on the roads today were built nearly half a century ago, there exists an almost religious dedication to keeping them alive. The fastest stock motorcycles on British roads during the 1950s wore the Vincent badge. Manufactured in Stevenage until the early 1950s, a tuned Vincent twin could reach speeds in excess of 120 miles an hour. That's enough to win over Glyn Johnson, president of Britain's Vincent Owners Club.
Well, that all started post-war when the Series B and C machines came out from Vincent in 1946. Again, they picked up where the pre-war ones left off on a much tidied up scale. They went from the old, what they used to call the plumber's nightmare with the oil pipes all over the place, to a very cleaned up machine, really tidy, fast, powerful machine. An example of that is the Series B Black Shadow over there, which is one of the first Black Shadows ever made, early 1948. Over-the-counter machine, 125 miles an hour. Nothing like it. 20 years ahead of its time. At that time, You know, I mean, a good bike would be doing 80, 90, do the ton, you know. That was the thing, do the ton, 100 mile an hour. But there you've got a motor, 125, you're in another league. Of course, with the cafe racer scene, what they're all about is racer on the road. Cafe racer customizing is about, it's got to do the work, it's got to deliver the goods, it's got to be fast, it's got to stop well, it's got to handle well, and it's got to look cool outside the calf. You need the handling, you need the performance. Well, the Vincent's certainly got the performance. In the early 50s, what came out then? The featherbed frame, the ultimate in handling. And so what you've seen here with this example behind me, for example, is a 1956 machine. It's a Manx featherbed. That is to say it's the pucker racing thing. The lightweight frame, the magnesium conical hubs, all this business. Together with a Vincent engine, with highly modified, probably produces about 80 horsepower. The two combination back in the 50s, that would be just phenomenal, you know, really would. And so this is what it's about. Who's got the fastest bike? Who looks the coolest outside the calf? You know. People in those days used to live, eat and breathe the bikes, you know. So they'd be spending they'd have a daytime job in the evenings, working on their bikes, Saturday nights out down at the calf, you know, listening to the music, playing the records on the jukebox, all this sort of thing. And then the bike's parked up outside. It's like being in the pub, telling all the pub tales, you know, what's been going on. So-and-so's done to his bike, and you go, oh yeah, come on, let's go and give it a blast up the road and see if mine will go faster than yours now, and all this sort of thing.
Though choppers, not cafe racers, were the predominant form of custom street bike in America during the 1950s and 60s, the cafe racer cult is taking form throughout the US. In cities from coast to coast, ton-up clubs, mods and rockers rides, and custom cafe racer shows are springing up everywhere. One of the biggest takes place each July at the Mid-Ohio Racecourse in Mansfield, Ohio. There we caught up with one of Britain's best-known cafe builders, Ian Kennedy.
We're originally from North London, England. Used to sell Norton Triumphs and BSA over there, and built God knows how many Tritons. I can't remember how many Nortons and Triumphs I've destroyed over the years, and now I'm paying the price by trying to find all the parts I used to throw away to build my own collection. I intend to put a museum in my shop in Georgia. I've got about 65 bikes so far. I built one to please myself, and a dealer saw it and says I'll have it. So if he said it that quick, gave me an idea that maybe I should be building some more. And that's how it all got started. My old man called it the greenhouse, I called it the workshop, and the battle lines were drawn. Make an English person laugh now, but I'd pick up a Norton for maybe £20, an old Triumph for similar money, get rid of what was left over, nobody really wanted it, and there was a special. And it also put us into the parts business because people saw my bike and then they wanted the parts that were on it, so we started stocking the parts, and then I eventually opened a shop in Finchley, North London. And then we took Nortons on there as well, then Triumph and BSA, as well as building specials. Well, originally I moved to Canada. I went over to visit some customers that had shops over there, and I saw there was a bigger market, so I thought, well, I'll give it a try. Now, more recently, I attended a lot of rallies in the States, and I could see the great resurgence of interest in the classics. And even people with modern machines, they want to have an old darling in the garage as well. Everybody wants to relive their youth when they can still remember what it was. So I've got customers, 60s and 70s, maybe shouldn't be riding anymore, but they still want the old girl again. And that's where we come in. So we import stuff all over the world for people to rebuild their old Triumphs, Nortons and BSAs again. Some people like a unit motor. To me, I prefer the pre-unit. It looks more period. You can, of course, put endless modern parts onto it. So basically all you need is a frame and crankcase, and a Triton is what's in one person's mind. I tell people, you're not starting a fan club, you're pleasing yourself. So you do whatever you want. You could even put a Japanese front end on, or find a 4-leading shoe front end, Cherryani forks, 5-speed transmission. You could put a Quaife Norton gearbox in there if you want. It's just endless. You just do what you want. Some people like to build the Triton as it was in the 60s. Some people have got their own idea of what they want to do now, and they put more modern parts. I remember once I got a Commando frame and made a rubber-mounted Triton. And when I had it on show at Earl's Court in England, it upset the Triumph factory and upset the Norton factory. Got a lot of publicity though, but the wrong type from the factory. Really, this event for any motorcycle person is a must-go-to event. I've been coming here for years. It's a long trek. I've got to come here. It's almost.
This guy knows what he's
It's
talking
almost like. Thanks for the tip, mate. I'll give you a $5 in a minute. All right. It's almost like a pilgrimage, and I really enjoy it. I bought one or two of my bikes here before, but basically I come around, feeding my habit. You always find something you didn't know you wanted till you see it. It's that kind of event. You can't see it all in 3 days. And I just thoroughly enjoy it, and I recommend it to anybody. Well, I haven't had a good chance to look around, but this kind of bike like this, the guy told me it's his first attempt. He's done bloody well to do that. I mean, he asked me a couple of opinions, and I said, it's an opinion, everybody does it differently, but I thought he did exceptionally well for a first-time go at it. So it just goes to show that anybody could do it if they got the mechanical aptitude.
A younger generation of cafe racer builders, like Michigan's Mike Selman of Cell Motion Motorsports, are also carrying on in the footsteps of men like Ian Kennedy.
I think the world has gotten a little bit overdone with the chopper craze, and people are looking for something different. As my slogan goes, nostalgia never grows old. So I think anyone that's got an old bike and want to customize it, a cafe racer is a great direction to take it. It'll strip off all the unnecessary things and focus on just what makes the bike go fast and stop and handle well. First thing I did is put on the Dunstall exhaust and the low handlebars and the lightweight Italian parts to save weight. And I've been doing that with all my motorcycles ever since. So it's very true to my old bike. I think it's a sensation of speed and handling. It's a very visceral experience. Now, I'm from Detroit. We don't have many winding, hilly roads there, but I can get outside of the city and open up, and it's a lot of fun. I just don't get that out of my Harleys.
Milwaukee's Harley-Davidson designed and manufactured their own cafe racer back in 1977. And while the company is better known for its large displacement cruisers, subsidiary company Buell has kept an interest alive in American-made V-twin cafe bikes. The most recent edition, Buell's 1125CR, or Cafe Racer, was designed by company founder and former cafe racer Eric Buell.
Well, we're out here at Spreewaldring near Berlin. Beautiful little racetrack. Got a bunch of guys from all over the world test riding the new 1125CR, 21st century cafe racer that we just came out with this year. Well, you know, the 1125CR is an American sport bike, but we sell a lot of our motorcycles in Europe. And Berlin, Germany is a big street fighter market. So we just thought it would be a lot of fun to come here and have the American journalists come over and experience this and have everybody in the world try this world bike. The 1125CR is the cafe racer version. It's geared down, geared deeper to accelerate harder. It's got these Clubman handlebars on it, just a little tiny, mean, vicious looking windshield and face to it that just looks aggressive. You know, it's not about aerodynamics, it's just about being bad. You know, I always loved cafe race type motorcycles when I was young. Started out riding a kind of a Harley chopper, but I live in the back roads of Pennsylvania where the roads were twisty and windy. And pretty soon I figured out I needed something that went around corners. So I had a Velocette Thruxton. I loved that bike. And all the bikes I had, always the ones I'd build, I'd put Clubman bars on and Coney shocks and triangular tires. And that whole deal of trying to put on what the road race guys had, but on my street bike, you know. You know, I think the cafe racer craze, what's cool about it is, you know, when you have the full fared bikes and everything that are all about top speed, you start losing track of the fact that they're about handling. And the whole cafe racer thing is about, you know, you have all the essentials of handling. You got the bars low, you got great suspension, all those things, but it's naked and raw, and you can see all the hardware, and nobody's going 200 miles an hour in the street anyway.
For the American cafe racer fan, the fire still burns, even 4 decades after first experiencing the thrills of motorcycling.
I won Legends of the Motorcycle this year with that bike in my class, and I've been a Triumph fan my whole life. I raced Triumphs back in the 60s, flat track, half miles primarily, and so I'm 64 years old. I'm not going to go around too many more times, and I thought I got to come and see all this stuff. You know, it's amazing how many old logo Triumph t-shirts I've seen here on younger people and the fascination that they have with the cafe scene. It's interesting, really. I mean, I was in England in 1961 in the Air Force, and I went to London. I went to the Ace Cafe one time, and I kind of got hooked on that look, and I couldn't buy a spoke for a Triumph at that time, but I kept that in mind. So I had an opportunity to buy this Rickman frame, and I had a bunch of Triumph engines laying around. So, 1 + 2 and a box of parts, and here we are.
Custom bike shows are only part of the cafe racer scene growing in the US. For the members of clubs like the Brit Iron Rebels and Ton Up Chicago, it's all about the ride.
From Fort Worth, Texas. Well, I'd been planning to come up here for years, and Raphael found out about the Chicago group being here because he's at the Mods and Rockers up in Chicago, and he said, well, let's do it. So here we are. Well, I grew up in the 60s, and close to an air base. There were BSAs and Triumphs running around all over the place, and once you hear it, it hits you, man. You can't do anything about it.
Actually, I was riding choppers, and I saw a book about the Ace Cafe, loved it, and all my choppers got reversed into cafe bikes. Well, handling-wise, a cafe bike goes around the corner. A chopper, you might as well just walk it around the corner. Actually, a buddy of mine told me about Ton Up. I started getting on the website and started finding out we were all over the country, and next thing you know, we got a chapter in Indianapolis. So, anybody can do 100 miles an hour on a Katana. They rattle, they shake, they move, they don't hold the road the way a modern bike does, and so hitting 100 miles an hour is a lot of work. It's wrench, ride, repeat.
I like the standard style, traditional style of motorcycling, but I don't want to be sat straight up with my arms high in the air with, high bars. I like low clip-on bars, sporty type of styling, but, with the traditional styling of the old motorcycles. I'm in Brit Iron Rebels, and it's basically a club that is centering around the rocker culture and old British bikes and new modern classic Triumphs. Well, I kind of got into it because it fits for me. This is kind of the style that I like. Even if I wasn't into this, I would be in a similar dress style and probably in a similar motorcycle style. But my family's from England originally, so my uncle and my grandfather, they all rode, and my uncle was in the era of the actual rockers. So I kind of was brought up, with that early on in life. Although I didn't really get into rocker culture until maybe 10 years ago.
I love the bikes, they're poetry in motion. Bridget Bardot. All the kids in my neighborhood were riding beat up old Triumphs because that's what was cheapest at the time. So got my first Triumph when I was 18 or 19 and rode it on the dirt back behind my house in Wisconsin and learned about British bikes that way, and then just kind of developed my love of the rocker culture after I saw Quadrophenia and the Leather Boys and the films from that era that showed the hooligan culture and the rocker culture. I think the English rocker culture is pretty unique. I mean, the American take on it is definitely very different. The mateship of the rockers during that era, I think they had that post-World War II camaraderie that brought the working class kids together in the 50s and 60s and really created that rocker culture. And I think it was different in America. We didn't have that same experience, from post-World War II. I mean, their cities were bombed, ours were not. So we've got a wide range of guys who have different raging jobs, make different amounts of money, from, like I said, guys in their 20s to guys close to 60. So it's a full range of rocker culture.
An event weekend usually starts on Friday night. We have a little pre-party and everybody gets together and hangs out. And then on Saturday, all the bikes start showing up, and we get probably 700 or 800 motorcycles down one of the streets in Chicago, both sides up and down the block. It's a lot of different bikes, not all British, but runs the whole spectrum of the 50s rockers, Elvis, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, Eddie Cochran. All that early rock and roll is really intricate, integral to the rocker culture.
Most important question, who's the fastest guy in Ton Up Chicago?
Absolutely, it's me, by far.
Cafe racer, yeah, people like to do it again, but of course all the old crafts are not there as readily now, and to do the cafe racer with a modern machine is not so easy. It's more a case of slightly style alterations to the bike you've bought. And most people are going to buy an R1s and it's all done for you, you know. But the Cafe Racer thing, it's a bit more than that. It's the soul in the machine you've built. It's a racer on the road.
Gets my soul, and if I win that